I used to be a senior oceanographer at a respected research institute. As an old man with no family, and my health beginning to deteriorate, I figured it was finally time to retire earlier this year. I've been waiting a long time for this, so I'll get straight to the point. In 1968, 7 years into my time at the institute, I was overjoyed to be selected as a last-minute replacement to lead an underwater cartographical expedition on the seafloor in the North Atlantic. I was one of 9 men on our new submarine, the Captain James Cook, which we affectionately nicknamed the Cookie to save our breath and avoid possible confusion. Our mission was to chart a region of the mid-Atlantic ridge that had been confusing some of the scientists studying it, leading us to believe that it had been incorrectly charted. We set off for our 6-week voyage on an ordinary spring morning and had no problems on our way to the destination, other than a minor engine problem on the second day. We reached the region by the end of the first week and began charting the region. It was pretty dull, just writing out massive amounts of data by hand, with some accompanying notes here and there. So far, everything seemed in line with the earlier data. The first major difference was discovered about halfway through the mission. Coincidentally, on one of the crewmen's birthdays. It appeared that a previous, unknown rift was nestled between 2 mountains, making them appear to be taller on one side than the other. The sonar was still inconclusive, and the Cookie was too big to maneuver into place, so we decided to investigate the rift close up with a couple divers. We chose the birthday boy and our most experienced driver to go look while the sub stayed parked atop a plateau on one of the mountains. Our radio malfunctioned while the 2 were out there, but they were tethered to the Cookie, so we just waited for them to come back. The only problem was, they didn't. We didn't have any more diving suits either, so no one else could go out and look for them. After an anxious 2 hours of waiting for them, we decided to reel in the tether, expecting to find them injured, or worse, dead. But what we reeled in was even worse than either. Nothing. The tether had somehow been cut only a few feet away from the end where they should have been. We hadn't detected any geological activity or large animals while they were out there, which stupefied us. The radio was still out despite our best efforts to fix it, so we decided to cancel the rest of the mission and go back home. To our horror, the engine also stopped working, trapping us on the seafloor with only 36 hours of air left. As you could expect, tempers flared as we desperately tried fixing the radio and engine to no avail. After a shouting match, one of the engineers stormed out of the engine room, only to vanish on us. While we were looking for him, we heard a knock on the hatch. This didn't make any sense, and we froze. Did the engineer find another suit and go outside? We checked the radio again to no success, and decided to let him in. I sealed off the entrance and unlocked the hatch for him, but he wasn't there. The first 2 divers came in and started pumping out the entrance. By this time, about 12 hours had passed since they had gone out, so there should have been no way for them to have had enough air to survive out there for this long. Not a word was said as they knocked on the entrance door, still wearing their suits. I stood there, hand hovering over the lock on the inner door, while 2 suited men stood silently on the other side, watching me through their helmets. The same one as before started banging on the door, still without shouting, and one of the crewmen whispered to me that there was no way they should have stayed out there that long without running out of air. So, I guess we should let them in, right? Asked my research partner, breaking the silence. Whatever those things are, they are not coming in, grunted a crewman in response. At this point, we argued under our breath what to do while the suited men stood motionless across the door. We ultimately decided not to let them in yet and to keep working on the radio and engine. For the next 3 hours or so, we nervously resumed such, while one man kept an eye on the two still waiting in the entrance. Someone went to check up on the situation at the entrance, only to discover that the guard and the two suited men were gone. Panicked, the 5 of us left, split into 2 groups, and searched the sub again. Suddenly, we heard a shouting from the other team, and they came running towards us. "The bunks," one of them said, exasperated. And with the hair on his arms standing straight up, we went back to the bunks and found 4 skeletons lying in the corresponding beds of the 4 who were missing. The 2 empty diving suits were lying on the floor. At this point, I was terrified and knew the suit could potentially be used to escape to the surface. And worse, I knew that the other 4 still with me had the exact same realization. As I was in front, someone pushed me over and I knocked my head off a pipe and passed out as the others fought over the remaining suits. When I woke up hours later, I was gasping for breath. The air had almost run out. I looked up and saw my research partner and one of the crewmen savagely beaten to death, lying on the floor near me. The skeletons were still lying in their beds, but whereas before they were lying face up, they were now all lying on their sides with their empty eye holes intently fixed on me. I scrambled to my feet, and to my relief, they didn't move, as I was half expecting them to. I checked the entrance, and as expected, it was flooded with the outdoor hatch shut from the outside. I looked around the sub, and when I checked the bunks again, the 2 on the floor were now skeletons lying in their beds. With nothing left to do, I decided to down a bottle of rum and end things before a painful death of asphyxiation. When I was rummaging through the pantry, looking for all the booze on board, I found an emergency radio sitting on the top shelf. As fast as I could, I turned it on and started desperately trying every frequency. To my surprise, it was actually working, and I got in communication with the Coast Guard, reported my position and situation, that I was stuck and almost out of air, and they told me to remain calm and try to last until they could pick me up. Unfortunately, while they were en route, I passed out from the lack of air and everything faded away. When I woke up, I was in the hospital, recovering from the incident. I was told that it had taken over a day to find me after I passed out, and the doctors were completely bewildered as to how I lived. Later, when I was visited by the institute, I was told that the rift had turned out to be a perfectly chiseled out abyss with clean, straight edges. A depth reading had been attempted by ship after my rescue, only to read that the abyss went deeper than the scale could detect, meaning it must have gone deep into the mantle. I was sworn to secrecy and resumed work a week later on a new project. I was always completely stupefied by how I was able to survive. But things started to make a little more sense this morning when I got up and went to my bathroom mirror to find a skeleton staring back at me. I thought I was thinner than usual when I woke up. As I've been typing this, my flesh has been withering away into nothing, and now I'm little more than skin stretched on an empty frame of bones. So I'm having great difficulty typing this now, and doubt I'll have any muscle in my hands in another 30 seconds. I feel cold. I think I'll end this here and crawl into bed. Be careful at sea.